Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here, and again I have something a little bit different today. I'm going to be running through a solo playthrough of the original Warhammer Quest game. Now, this isn't something I would normally do. First of all, I'm just not really that into board games. The thing is, this coming weekend I've been invited to a couple board game nights, like 2 in the same weekend. It's not normally the thing that I'm really into. Board games to me are sort of like the thing that you do if you're around people that don't do either miniature war games or role-playing games. So they're not my first choice. But this might give me the opportunity to play one of my favorite board games, which is Warhammer Quest. So I'm packing up my stuff. I've got a fully painted set of the old classic game. So I would definitely be keen to play that game. The thing is, I haven't played that game for kind of a long time. I'm not really sure when the last time was, but it was a while ago. So I'm a little rusty on the rules. And I've learned from these things in the past that it's really handy to have at least one person that really knows the rules of the board game that you're playing. Now, obviously, I would be that person. So I want to go through a game of this. I'm just going to do it on my own, just to refresh myself with the rules so that I don't show up and look like an idiot. And since I'm doing that, I might as well take pictures of it and give you guys a report of how it goes. So the first thing that I do is I pick my 4 bold adventurers to go delving into the dungeons here. And because I'm refreshing myself with these game rules, I just decided to go with these standard 4 characters that come in the main box. Now, if you want to go back into my videos on my channel, you will see that I actually have painted up all of the official characters for the Warhammer Quest game. Go ahead and take a look at those. It's just quick pictures of them painted up. But anyway, here's my first guy. This is going to be the leader. This is Leaf the Legbiter, my barbarian. I rolled him up 14 wounds, so that's a good start. Here's my dwarf. I rolled him up another 14 wounds as well. That's Briscoe Carrick Jr. Got myself an elf. That's Bellander the Road Weary. I got him 12 wounds. And here is Randolph Grousum, my wizard. You can see I got a little light wizard painted up there. So he got 11 wounds, which is not bad. He got a power store of 5, which is real good. And then I rolled up his spells. I got Freeze, which is a really nice spell. It allows me to roll a d6, and that many enemies on the same board section takes that amount of damage, which is a really nice spell. It costs a lot, but it's good. Then I got Confuse, which is not bad. It doesn't cost a lot of power, and it just makes one model lose an attack. But the big thing is Life Force, is my healing spell. Now, when I used to play this a lot back in like the 90s, we discovered that a key point to this game is first off, having low power cost spells. So the way this game works is every round, every player turn, you roll a d6, and that's the amount of power that a wizard can use in a turn. So if you have a bunch of spells that cost 5s and 6s, that means a third of the time you're not actually going to be able to cast any spells. So you really want those low power cost spells. And especially what you want is a low power cost healing spells. I believe it's Healing Hands is the one that you really want. So I didn't get that. I've got a 5, a 3, and a 5. And Life Force may be the worst healing spell that you can get. What it does is you cast a spell on another model before they've activated, and for every point of damage that they do to monsters, you can heal a point of damage to one of your models. So it's very conditional, it's hard to use, and it's expensive. So it's not a great spell, but we'll see how this guy does. And since we're starting off fresh, what they recommend is that you do the fighting pit, free the prisoners scenario. So I'm just going to go with that. So I get the fighting pit, I shuffle that in to my dungeon cards, I take my treasure cards, I shuffle them up, and I take my event cards as well. I'm not using the expansion for the Lair of the Orc Lord. I do have that, but I'm not going to include it again just to keep things simple. If I could get the Catacombs of Terror, the one with the undead, that would be fantastic, but that's just ridiculously expensive. Also, my apologies for bringing up this game to a certain extent, because those of you who are interested in it think, hey, Warhammer Quest, that looks like a great game, I want to go out and buy it. Obviously, it's been out of production for decades, and if you want to get this original game, like on eBay, it's just shockingly expensive. So it took me a while. Like, I was hunting for this game for a long time until I finally found one that was affordable, and I was really happy about that, but yeah, I'm sorry about these dead games that I keep bringing up. They are a lot of fun, but I understand that they can be challenging if you want to get these yourself. Anyway, as far as the event cards go, I always take out the card Cave In. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't really know how this card is supposed to be used. It just seems like a good way of having all your characters die. Like you draw that and like a round later they all die. When we were playing this back in the old days, we would also take out the D3 Minotaurs. Because if you draw that and you get 3 Minotaurs, same kind of thing. You're just going to die. I don't think there's any way to fight 3 Minotaurs when you're just starting off. But I'm going to keep it in. I'm going to try and have some guts with this, and I'm going to keep that card in there. I'm going to take out the Cave In because it's just dumb. And we'll see how this all goes. So first thing I do is I draw my first dungeon card. Now the way this works is that you take 6 cards and your objective room card, and you shuffle those up. So the objective card is somewhere in a stack of 7 cards. And then you deal 6 more cards on top of that. And then one at a time, as you explore this dungeon, you draw one of those cards. So I know my objective is not in the first 6 rooms, but that's okay. So when we're going to start, I draw my first card. It is the Torture Chamber. Normally in a room, monsters jump out at you, but as far as I can tell, this is the first room, so that doesn't happen. So I line up all my guys on the far side of the wall. We're ready to explore. The Barbarian has a lantern. He's going to shine his lantern into that passageway. At the end of my turn, we're going to see what the next room is. And of course, every turn I roll for power. This gives me not only how much power my wizard has to use, but also on the roll of a 1, something happens. Usually monsters pop out, or often something bad happens to me, and then monsters pop out. But regardless, 1 is doubly bad. First off, something bad usually happens, and then second off, your wizard doesn't have very much power to deal with it. So I want to try and avoid rolling 1s, and for this first turn, yeah, I roll a 3, so we're doing okay. And we shine my lantern down, we find a corridor. So next turn, I roll up a power of 5, I move. I like keeping all my guys together. These are the tactics that me and my friends developed over time. Keep everyone bunched up so that we can't get surrounded. It also means that our fighters have less chance of doing a death blow. If you kill a monster in 1 hit, you can keep swinging around yourself like in an arc, keep hitting in adjacent squares, and ideally kill a bunch of guys. But I feel it's more important to keep people alive than to maximize our damage. So I bunched people up. I made sure there's a fighter in the front, so my barbarian is in the front and my dwarf is in the back. So next round I get 3 power. I head up in formation. Leaf the Legbiter shines his light into the next room, and it's the Circle of Power. Now the names don't actually make any difference, it's just rooms. The only difference is rooms and corridors. In a room, once we go into it, I draw a card and something pops out at me at the end. So we'll see how that works. So here's the next turn. I know something's going to jump out at me at the end of this. I get 6 power, which would have been great when the monsters jump out. But I line myself up against this wall so people can't surround me. Make sure my fighters are kind of in the middle there. And here come the monsters. I get the card for D6 orcs and D6 orc archers. So I roll the maximum 6 orcs, which isn't great, and I get 2 orc archers. So they all line themselves up. The bow-armed bad guys go as far away as possible in the same room. And the other guys line up 1 for 1, so you try and split the bad guys evenly amongst the good guys. And so they all pile in like that. Now, on their turn, this is the monster's turn, they don't actually get to do anything. They just sort of pop out from hidden passageways or where they're skulking about. So we're going to go straight to my turn. I get a power 5. Now that's awesome because I get to use my freeze spell from my wizard. So he rolls his d6. He gets a 5. So that means he kills off 5 dudes. So he kills off 2 of the 2 orc archers, and he kills off 3 of the normal orc boys. That's fantastic. Less fantastic is Leaf the Legbiter there. Every time he activates, he has to roll a d6. And I have to activate these guys in a very particular order. So the Barbarian has to go first because he has the lantern. Then it goes in initiative order. Bellandor the Road Weary goes next. That's my elf. Then Randolph Growlsome, my wizard, he goes after that. And then finally, Briscoe Carrick Jr. is always going to go last. So anyway, every time the Barbarian activates, he has to roll a d6. And I have to add everything that I've killed so far to that number. So if I get a total of 6, then he goes crazy with his Berserker Fury, and he gets an extra attack. If he rolls a 1, then he's just too mad and drunk, in my guy's case, and he just flails about all around him, not doing anything effective. And he causes 1 damage to all the good guys next to him. So some people really like separating out their characters away from the Barbarian. I kind of take my chances. It doesn't pay off in this case, as he just swings his sword and screams ineffectively. He hands a point of damage to Briscoe Carrick Jr. and Randolph Grousum, and does nothing else useful this turn. And a 1 always fails. So my elf, in order to move away from an adjacent square as a monster, you have to make a pinning test. So people who are more dexterous will be able to move around more freely than people who are not. The elf always passes. So he's going to jump around to the back. He's going to help the wizard out with his orc that he's fighting. Anyway, the elf misses, but Randolph does pretty well. He kills 1 orc and then wounds another. And then Briscoe Carrick Jr. comes in. He swings with his axe. He finishes off that last orc. And because he killed a guy in 1 hit, he gets to try a death blow. He goes on and he hits and kills the last one. So we all win. When we defeat a group of monsters, at the very end, once all the monsters are dead, we get a magic item. In this case, I get the Incense of Healing, which is an awesome magic item. I'd never gotten it before, but it's like this healing fog or smoke that you release, and it heals all the characters on the board 2d6 hit points. And so, yeah, it's really good. But it's 1 use only. So I'm going to give that... Who do I give that to? I give that to my dwarf. I give that to Briscoe Carrick Jr. He did so well at the end there. And it's also good to have your healing items on people that are a little bit more survivable, because they can bring people back from the dead. They're less likely to be the ones that need the healing, so they can be around to do the healing. But on to the next turn. I roll power of 3, all my guys move up, and we explore, and we get another room, the guard room. The next warrior phase, I get a 4 for power. We pile in. We're going to do the same kind of formation. And we get 2d6 Skaven as my enemy. And I roll 11 Skaven. So that's kind of a lot, but I'm in a good position, and these Skaven aren't really all that tough. So I'm feeling pretty good. In my next power phase, again, I get 5 for power. And again, I use that freeze spell, and I roll another 5, so that means I just kill 5 off the back right there, and that's really good. The barbarian manages to not fail his frenzy, so he goes a bit crazy, and with that death blow rule, he kills 1, 2, 3 Skaven all in front of him. The elf tries to get kind of fancy and shoot with his bow, but he misses. The wizard misses as well, but Briscoe Carrick, he actually passes his pin check, and so he breaks away from that Skaven facing the wizard, and he jumps over at those other 2. My hope is that he can use that death blow rule to kill both of those guys, but he misses. For their part, the Skaven miss the wizard, which is great, and the dwarf takes 1 damage total, which isn't bad. The next round, I get a power of 3. The barbarian fails his frenzy check again, and he just flails around, handing another point of damage to Bellandor and Briscoe Carrick, so that's fantastic. Bellandor shoots and wounds a Skaven, probably the one on the wizard, which Randolph Grousum promptly kills. And then Briscoe Carrick manages to kill another Skaven. Skaven strikes back and hits him for 2 points of damage. So this round I get a power of 5 again, and so I can use freeze, but I don't think it's really necessary. So I use the life force, and I put it on the elf. For a number of reasons. Like, the elf isn't a great damage dealer, but I know he's going to go second, and I don't want to waste a bunch of attacks hoping that the dwarf will finish this guy off at the very end, and I want to move the barbarian up to peer into that doorway. I don't want to waste an extra turn moving him into position, so the barbarian goes first because he's the leader, he's got the lantern, he moves into position at the doorway. I totally expect to have this guy killed. The elf jumps forward, takes out his sword, manages to kill that last Skaven. That gives me a couple of healing points to pass around. And then, yeah, this combat is over. I get myself a Finger of Doom scroll, which is a kind of a high-end magical attack that I give to my wizard. It gives me basically another spell. It's good against armored stuff and maybe things like the Minotaurs and tough stuff like that. And my dwarf and my wizard move up, and we explore the next room, and it's a passageway. So we get a power of 6, so no monsters jump out, and we move down the corridor in formation. Then we get a power of 4, we move again, and we take a look down that next doorway, and we get another passageway. So I'm setting this stuff up to kind of make a U shape back towards where I am, because I'm running out of table space. Get a power of 4, everyone chomps down the passageway. Power of 5, move up to the doorway, peer down there, and I get a T-section. What happens when you get a T-section is that On each passageway, you take all the remaining dungeon cards and you split them into 2 decks. So just one here, one there, one here, one there. And so down one of these passageways is going to be my objective room. The other one is just going to dead end. So this could be really good. It could mean that the next room that I look down could be the objective room, and that's great. Or it could mean that I've got to backtrack through a whole nother section of corridors to find my objective room. So we'll see which way that pans out for me. Get a power of 6, I move straight into the center of that T section. This is in great position. This is an awesome way to get ambushed. I decide to move down straight and I get a power of 6, move up, no bad things jump out at me. I explore at the end and I find a dungeon cell. So that's a room. So if I go in there, something's going to jump out and attack me, and it's also not the objective room. So on my next turn, I get a power 5, so again, nothing's going to attack me, but I decided to go the other way. So I'm going to avoid the encounter for now. I'm going to look down the other passageway. I did manage to block my barbarian into that corner, so I have to move everybody out this first turn, and then I got to go through another turn to move the barbarian in. Anyway, it's wasting my time a little bit, but I don't know. I don't like the look of that dungeon cell. I want to see if I can take another way around that thing. So again, I get like power 2, so no events. I have not rolled a 1 on this power score yet, so I've had no random encounters, which is fantastic. I do mess up again. That dwarf is in my way, so I have to kind of move around him a little further than I would like. So I'm going to have to take another round until I can actually explore that passageway. But again, no random encounters. Get a power 5, move, and it's another T section. That's kind of good and kind of bad. It means that if I don't find my objective room, since there's only 1 card in each of those split passageways, I don't actually have to go into those rooms if they're not the objective room. So I can just go down there, take a look in, and then move back. But it is sort of a lot of extra stomping around. Get a power 5, move up. Power of 3, I go and hug that far wall because I'm going to be staying there for a while. Just the barbarian's going to be looking down with his lantern. I go and I look down that left-hand passageway and I find a corridor that dead ends. I know that's not where I want to go. So next round, get a roll of 5. Again, not hitting those special events. And then round after that, I get a power of 4. Look down that, and it's another corridor that dead ends. I don't know who was in charge of building this dungeon, but they were clearly insane. So, no objectives down that branch. Well, I know where it is. Got to go through that dungeon cell. So I get a power of 3, move back the way I came. Power of 6, keep on moving. Power of 5, and I move into the room. And I draw my event card. And this time it isn't events. This is scorpions. This is a terrible one. 12 scorpions crawl up from the floor, and they attack someone. In this case, they go and attack Randolph Growlsome, my wizard, which is terrible. And so what he has to do is he has to roll damage as he tries to furiously stomp these things as they're coming out. So he rolls a d6, he gets a 3, plus his strength of 3, that's 6. So he kills 6 scorpions, he gets himself 30 gold, which is nice. But then he takes just straight 6 damage. So he's down by more than half. And then at the very end it says, roll a d6. On a 1, 2, or 3, another event happens, and I don't know if I've ever seen it where we don't roll the additional event. I mean, it just seems like we always do. And sure enough, I do. We get d6 goblins with spears and d6 goblins with bows. And I get 1 goblin spear, not very intimidating, and 3 goblins with bows. That's not so bad. But when it's my turn to go, I roll a 1 for the power phase, which means there's another event. So I get the portcullis event, which means that a gate slams behind me, which is kind of cool looking. I can't actually backtrack through that way now until I find the key, which is a huge pain. But I know the objective room is dead ahead. I don't think I'm going to have to backtrack, so I should be okay. But of course, it's one of those things where you have to roll d6 on a 1, 2, or 3, another event occurs. Sure enough, I roll that 1, 2, or 3. Maybe I don't have to roll, maybe it just automatically happens. But either way, we get 6 more goblins with spears. The barbarian gets his frenzy, but manages to miss twice. Bellandor the Road Weary goes next. He's going to kill 1 and wound another. Randolph Growlsome goes next. He kills 1, moves on, wounds another. So he killed the wounded one and then moved on to wound a fresh one that was sitting in front of him. The dwarf is trying to break his pin so he can kind of jump in the middle and take some heat off of the wizard. See, those goblins with spears, they get to attack 2 squares. So he's hoping to jump into those goblins with bows, so they all have to hit him instead of the wizard. But he doesn't succeed, and all he can do is kill that last goblin that's in front of him. In the monster phase, some night goblins shoot Leaf the Legbiter for 2 points of damage. Those goblins with the spear stab my wizard, Randolph, for 1. And they get really lucky and they stab Bellandor for 6 points of damage, so that hurts. So the next phase I roll a 2 for the magical power. And I really need to heal some people. So my wizard spends 3 of his power counters, which I can use like, like magic power. I can only do it once per dungeon. But anyway, I'm going to spend 3 of those to get myself that life force ability. I think I'm going to kill those guys, but I really need to do some healing. He puts life force on the barbarian. The barbarian does not disappoint me. He manages to kill 2 of those dumb goblins. The elf misses, the wizard misses, the dwarf kills another 2 spear goblins. That's really nice. So all that's left is the night goblin archers. So Randolph manages to heal himself 3, Bellandor gets 1 more point, and the goblins all miss my guys, which is great. Those night goblins with the bows do terrible damage. I'm just not really worried about them. So anyway, more good news. I roll a 6 for the power, so again, no event, but it also means I get to cast that life force spell again. I'm going to put it on the barbarian, again, hoping he doesn't fail his frenzy check and just waste all of that, because I have to cast that spell before he activates. But, again, he doesn't fail it. By now he's getting his frenzy automatically. So he runs up. He doesn't roll fantastically, though. He only kills 1, but that'll give me 2 more points to heal my guys with. I give that to Randolph and Bellandor. Anyway, Bellandor moves up, kills a goblin. Randolph moves up, kills the last goblin. The dwarf moves up so we can explore something. Before that happens, I do manage to get a lucky talisman. That's a once per adventure thing that I can do to make someone automatically hit with an attack. I give that to my barbarian. Oh, and because there were actually 2 events in here, I get 2 treasure cards. So the next treasure card I get is the invisibility ring, which is really cool. You can activate that and you just can't be attacked for that round. All the monsters are going to miss you. So I give that to Bellandor the elf. So everyone's got a magic item and we're feeling pretty good. So the dwarf moves up and we're going to do our exploration. Now I know that there's only 2 rooms left in this dungeon, so I haven't been doing great here. I've been a little bit unlucky as to how many cards I've had to draw. But I do finally get my objective room. So this is the fighting pit. I know there's going to be a bunch of bad guys in here, but this is the last room we have to do, so good news. So the next round I get 2 for my power. I jump into the fighting pit and wait for the monsters to arrive. So I roll a 4, which isn't bad really. That means I'm going to get 6 orcs with bows, and 6 goblins with bows. So this could have been a lot worse. Obviously I don't want the one where you get 3 minotaurs. So I think this is very doable. So it's a new round, roll for a new power, and wouldn't you know it, I finally roll that 1 for the event. And so I draw a new event card, and we get 6 more night goblins with bows. Okay, so we're really filling up here now. That's okay. It's a lot of bodies to go through, but they're not terribly tough monsters, so we're still in this. And then I go and I roll a 1 for my barbarian. So not only do I get no spells this round, but my barbarian can't attack either, and he hands both Briscoe Carrick Jr. and Bellandor the Road Weary another point of damage. So this is kind of starting to suck real fast. So the elf gets to go, and he just misses. We're trying to kill those orcs in front of us, because they are by far the most dangerous things. The wizard does manage to kill 1, and the dwarf wounds 1, which is really unlucky, because that dwarf has an ability where he rolls 2d6 for his axe, and he picks the highest. And if he rolls doubles, he gets both those. So he gets like double damage. The only downside is if he rolls double 1s and he trips on his beard. But he doesn't do that, but he managed to roll a 1 and a 2, and so that orc is still alive. For the monsters part, we'll break this down a little bit. So the orcs fighting in hand-to-hand combat, one of them stabs Bellandor for 2 points of damage. One of them gets a little bit lucky and stabs the wizard for 6 points of damage, which really hurts. So he's down to just a point or 2 left. So I've got to break out the healing potion. Bellandor the Road Weary has a healing potion, throws it at the wizard, and he's back up to full. So that'll keep him alive for a little bit. Then it's time for the orcs and the night goblins to shoot. And so just tons of shots just fill up the air, And when the dust settles, Briscoe Carrick Jr. has taken 3 points of damage, Bellandor the Road Weary has taken 5, and Randolph Grousum has taken 9 points of damage from that shooting, which is horrible. So, now we've got to break out the Incense of Healing. So Briscoe Carrick Jr. pops that up. Barbarian, he only had 2 points of damage, he gets healed that. Briscoe Carrick gets 7, he's okay. The Elf gets another 8 points of damage, Wizard gets another 9 points of damage. So we're doing a lot better. We're looking healthy now, but I've had to use all of my healing, and I did not do a great job of killing a lot of things. So unless I kind of start picking it up here a little bit, this same kind of thing is going to happen next round as well. Speaking of next round, I get a power of 2, which doesn't really help in any real way. And then I go to my Barbarian, and he, for the second round in a row, fails that Frenzy check, and so again just flails around doing nothing except causing another point of damage to Briscoe and another point of damage to Barrick. This is going bad really, really fast. Bellandor does manage to kill an orc, which helps. Randolph doesn't do anything useful. But Briscoe is being a hero here. He, again, this is a very nimble dwarf. He managed to break pin, so get away from his opponent, just leave Leaf the Legbiter to deal with those two guys, as he's fiercely yelling. Maybe he just wants to get away from Leaf, because Leaf's been handing him a lot of damage over the course of this adventure. Anyway, and he just goes into that next room and he just jumps into all those night goblins. Now this isn't great because actually those goblins they do a lot more damage and hit much more easily in hand-to-hand combat than they do with shooting. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to protect my wizard and my elf. The dwarf has basically a toughness of 5. So he's really hard to hurt, and he's got a lot of hit points, so he can take a lot of punishment. So what he's doing is just going to jump into the middle of these bad guys and try to take all these hits and keep my other people alive. Brave guy, he also does manage to kill that last orc, and the reason why I went for the orc instead of all those goblins around him, even though if I had started killing those goblins I would have gotten the death blow and might have killed a lot more of them, that last orc is the one fighting my wizard, fighting Randolph, and I want him dead so that my wizard doesn't take any more damage. So anyway, it's the monster phase. So all we have are those orcs stabbing at Bellandor and at Leaf the Legbiter, and they all manage to miss, which is great news. Now the orc archers go, and they're going to shoot Bellandor for 4 points of damage, and they're going to shoot Randolph for 3 points of damage, which isn't great. And then all the night goblins go, and they manage to put 2 more damage on Bellandor, and he's looking hurt. So it's my turn again. I get to roll a new power phase. All right, brand new round. Let's get some stuff happening. I roll a 1. Brand new event. And what do I get? I get 6 more orcs. So I don't know, some hidden passageway opens up in this fighting pit, and just a pile of orcs just surge into that area. I'm dead. This is really, really bad. I get no magic, and this place is absolutely filled with bad guys. I'm in serious trouble. The Barbarian gets to strike. At least he doesn't fail Frenzy for a 3rd round in a row, but he doesn't really do anything good. He just wounds 1 orc. Bellandor misses with his attack. The wizard does manage to kill a guy, so that's nice. That takes a little bit off. That takes a little heat off. And Briscoe Carrick kills an orc. That is not the kind of evening of the odds that I wanted to see, though. It wasn't terrible, but it was far from being very good. So then it's the monster phase. They all get to strike. The orcs, just the orcs stabbing people, do 4 points of damage to Leaf the Legbiter. Bellandor, he uses his ring of invisibility. So everyone attacking him, they can't do it. So he's going to take no damage. Randolph is going to take 5 points of damage, which really isn't terrible for him. And Briscoe Carrick is going to take 2 points of damage, which is kind of what you'd expect. He just doesn't take a lot of damage. Further good news is that the archery doesn't do a lot of damage either. So Briscoe is going to take another 2 points of damage from all the arrows flying around, and Leaf the Legbiter takes a well-deserved point of damage from one of those goblins. So this round could have been a lot worse. But it's a new round, and I get a power of 5. That's great. I get to use my freeze spell, and what I do is I just want to clear out orcs. So I roll, but I roll a 2. So 2 orcs take 2 damage. They're both still alive. It has to be on the same board section, so I don't get to clear all, I don't get to damage the 2 that are fighting Randolph. I'll take it, but that's rough. A higher number would have really helped me here, even 1 higher. So Leaf the Legbiter gets to go next. He strikes at one of the injured orcs that got hit by the freeze spell, kills that guy, moves on to the next one, hits him, but only manages to damage him, which is a pretty unlucky roll of a 1. So he's going to use his lucky talisman. He's going to get an automatic hit on that last one, and again, rolls another 1, only damages him. That orc is still alive. I don't get my death blow, and so that's kind of a bummer. Bellandor just straight misses. That's too bad. The wizard needs to get away from there. So I try to break my pin, which I actually succeed in doing, and so I move away, and so I get away from that one of those orcs that can strike me. And so I'm kind of leaving Briscoe to just take all those hits, but that's okay. He's got a better shot at surviving it than I do. So anyway, he moves around and he actually manages to kill the orc that is still in contact with him, so that's great. Unfortunately, Briscoe just straight misses. He really needs to shine here at this point because no one else is kind of doing the job, but it doesn't come up for him this time. So then it's the orcs, get to stab, stab, stab. Leaf takes another 4 points of damage from those guys. Briscoe takes another 5, that hurts. But he's got all those goblins in there stabbing him as well. So the orc archers get to go, and they unload their shots, and Randolph just straight dies. He takes too much damage. He was already hurt. And Bellandor, no more Ring of Invisibility. He pops up and just gets filled with arrows, so that's tough. So I lost my 2 vulnerable characters. Bellandor and Randolph are lying dead in the fighting pit. The Night Goblins finish off the shooting, and they hand 2 more damage to my Berserker Leaf the Legbiter. Okay, it's a new round. I get a power score of 6, which is great. Would have been great if I had a wizard. I do not. So just to make sure that we drive this point home, Leaf the Legbiter again manages to fail his frenzy. He doesn't have any friends to kill, but he just screams and throws his arms around wildly and does no damage. Thank you, Leaf. Briscoe, still in there swinging. He does kill 1 orc, and then everybody dies. They just gather around my last 2 heroes and just punch them to death and shoot them in the head with arrows, and that's it for that. Well, that was a little bit disappointing. I started this adventure just sailing through it. I'm like, wow, I'm doing really well. I'm rolling really lucky here. I got some good stuff set up, and then it all went horribly wrong. Now, it might be kind of a bummer, but this is exactly how I remember this game being back in the old days. If you guys are playing or watching videos of the new Warhammer Quest, that Silver Tower or Hammer Hall or whatever it's called, and you think, the game looks kind of easy, you know, it looks like you're just sailing through. You want to play Warhammer Quest on hard mode, go find yourself a classic version if you can, and yeah, you get to watch a lot of heroes die. If you're wondering why why the Warhammer world is such a dark, gritty place with so much death and so few noble, epic heroes, well, they're probably all going into the Warhammer Quest catacombs and getting themselves killed trying to rescue a bunch of prisoners from the fighting pit. Anyway, that's my video. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you on the next one.